Hi everyone, it's Louise with Louise Art, and welcome to my channel. Today, guess what we're doing? You're joining with me for the coaster ride. And if you're new here, thank you for being here. I'll try to cover some basic stuff today with making coasters using the bloom recipe. And yeah, let's get started. I've already done one coaster. I've done a Lazy Susan. I've done paint skins for a charcuterie board. This is a paint color palette I'm really happy with. And what I've got here is my Multi-Pro. It's 47-3110. This is what's called the pillow. In the bloom recipe, the bloom technique, you lay this down first, and this is like the base. This is house paint, and it's from Home Depot. And what this does is it holds up the composition that you create on top. It holds it up, and as the pillow spreads, so does the composition with it, and it kind of gives it a nice way of gliding out in all directions. That's what the pillow does. The pillow, you want to usually see a trace of about 4 to 5 seconds when you drizzle it off the stick. I would do it, but you won't be able to see it. But the pillow is the thickest of the three components. And then this is the paint. Now the paint is mixed with a pouring medium that in my case here is my Valspar 833124, mixed about 3.5 parts of that to about 1 part of my gloss Minwax. So I mix that all together. You mix it gently, you don't whip it. And then I mix that with my acrylic paint, whatever colors I'm using. In this case, here are the colors. And I mix it about 2 to 3 parts of the pouring medium to 1 part paint until you get to this kind of consistency, which this is about a 2-second trace, and it's actually thickening up some because I've had it out now for a few hours. The trace is how long you see the paint drizzle before it sinks into the paint. The consistency. This is Modern Masters Pearl White, and in it I have some shading gray by Glidden. Now, I know when I first started out, and you'll see here that Glidden is one of my favorite paints, I didn't want to spend the money on the Glidden because it was expensive. It is expensive. But you get what you pay for. It's a great paint, and it lasts a long time because it's highly pigmented, so you can get more mileage out of it. This is my Glidden's Quinacridone Nicolazo Gold combined with Quinacridone TLP Zeus, which is a TLP is this little piggy, and that is a mica powder, and it's sold from the Fluidart company. This is my gold combination. Here's the consistency again. This is my 24 karat gold by Deco Art, which is one of my staples, and Glidden's iridescent gold, and these colors go great together. Next color is my Glidden iridescent bronze. Iridescent silver, sorry. And what else can I tell you? This is my black combination, which is Arteza's Pearl Space Gray with some Glidden's Carbon Black. And this is my kind of my earth tone color combination. Okay, so normally I use my American Floetrol cell activator, but because I have so much surplus of the Australian, I mean, I have so much of it. If you're anywhere in North Carolina, you can come on over and pick some up because I've got a ton of it. From the Fluidart experience, I've got these little bottles from Winterstrom Art, from Jessica. I've got about 5 or 6 of each of these full of. I have more paint here than I would use in 5 years. Yeah. So this is the Australian. I do have an American Floetrol cell activator recipe, which is 141. And I'll link it above. It's a less expensive recipe. And if you want to see how I make it and everything about it, it's linked above. That's the white. This is the black. So as I blow this out, I'm going to talk through some of the components that are key to getting a good result.
First is your recipes and combinations. You have to have a pillow, pouring medium and paints, and the cell activator that are all working in concert with each other. Your consistencies need to be right so that paints can interact properly. Certainly the colors you pick, and then most importantly, the layering of the colors is hugely important to the outcome. Then of course, the blowout and how you develop the composition as you spin. These are all key components in my opinion.
All right, now what I didn't tell you about the cell activator is that it is the thinnest of all of the paints. It's the third component to go down. It's the last one down. And what it does is it helps to, once it's spread out like this, because of the consistency and the mixture, its recipe, it promotes cell development. And because it's thinner, the density helps work with it. And what it does is it works with the paints that are below it, which are thicker. And as this spreads out, the paints underneath push up and you get your cells. Now, the easy recipe is with the Australian Floetrol cell activator. It's the Australian Floetrol kind. It's an easier recipe because all you're doing is mixing, say, 2 or 3 parts of the Floetrol to 1 part paint. My recipe is a little more involved, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper and it works just as well. So here I'm just making sure I've got everything pushed to the edges. So the paint, as it starts to spin, knows right where it's going. It has no blockage in its travel path. So we'll give it a spin and we'll see what happens here. Yeah, I've got so much of this. I know I'm not complaining. I just feel bad because I've given half of my supply away too to a friend. I don't know how we're going to use it all. So the corners are always the last to go because number 1, it's the farthest from the center. And number 2, it often lacks the coverage. You got to make sure it gets nice and juicy so that the paints will just flow right in that direction. It usually takes a couple spins to start to get it fully spread out. I'm going to clean up, and throughout the video as I clean up, I will remove all this part of the video. Give it another spin. I used to save all my scrap paint, but I'm finding that I don't use it all and it becomes a waste anyway, so this is the more responsible way to get rid of it, is by having it on a paper towel, which will dry outside or in the trash can, and it will become waste. All right, so we're coming off. A couple more spins. Should get it. So the spinning, what happens is obviously the centrifugal force helps push the paint out and spread out across the canvas, or in this case, the tile, and make a coaster. Look at that. It's a very sophisticated looking palette, in my opinion. It's very classy. I think we're about done. Look at that. I don't need to do any more here. So I'm going to clean up my edges a little bit. You always want to clean up the bottom before you put it to bed, and you always want to make sure it's on a level surface when you put it down. But you always want to clean up the bottom so that the paint stops pulling over the edges and stretch out the composition. And I will finish cleaning it up off camera. But this is where this one is. Look at this. Oh my goodness.
So unfortunately I don't have the full creation video of the swipe I did, but I loaded up the palette knife like I did on the most recent Lazy Susan and did a straight swipe across the silicone mat.
So I'm going to apply the skin to the board using this matte varnish, which is just a matte varnish I'm using as a glue. And so I will apply some varnish to the board, to the back of this, and I will apply it to the to this piece.
So after I've applied the varnish to the skin, the back of the skin and the top of the board, I have adhered it to the board itself, and I'm making sure that the edges and the corners are fully adhered, and I've pushed out any of the extra varnish and air bubbles from the center. But you want to make sure that there is no remaining air bubbles, because the next step is going to be resining, and you want to have as flat a surface as possible. The edges are the hardest part because you really have to press it down and hold it until it fully adheres. So that's all I'm doing here. The rest of the board has already been applied. And for this one here on the skins, I left some overlap on all three sides and also into the handle section, so it looks really cool when it's finished. I really think that leaving that live edge makes it a more integrated piece, especially along the sides and the handle. It feels like the skin is just growing out from the cutting board itself. So I take about 5 minutes of just adding a little more varnish and securing the edges. I'm going to cut some of this out so you don't need to see all this. So everyone, that's a wrap. So here's a close-up of the finished resined cutting board. And here are the final results with 8 coasters I created with the same color palette. Now I'm showing you 8 coasters because I want you to see the consistencies between all 8 and the cutting board. So here's a close-up of one of those integrated edges I was talking about on the cutting board. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'm sorry I didn't have the full creation part of the swipe here, but I will be doing more, so you'll get to see it in the future. If you're new here and haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, hit the bell and all, leave a comment, a thumbs up, and you'll get all my latest art tutorials. At the end of this, I'm going to link my coasters playlist, but also remember I do have a playlist for charcuterie boards as well if you want to check that out. And remember, I'll be teaching blooming at the Fluidart Boutique. I'll have that link in the description. So that's all for now, everybody. Take care. Till next time.